There are more people watching YouTube on television than any other platform. I was reading Buffett at the time, and he was like, hey, whenever people are running away, it's a time to get in. And I was so ignorant. I was like, that sounds like a great idea.
What was that first platform, that first kind of marketing channel that you dove into?
What's up, REVB fam? Here with another real estate video blueprint podcast, not live, but in person, and excited to welcome this week's guest to the show, who is crushing on video, not only doing his own video, but also teaching others. Please join me in welcoming Juan Alcala to the show. What's going on, man? How are you?
What's up, Katie? What's up, Tim? Thanks for the invite, guys. I appreciate the opportunity to come and hang with your audience.
Yeah, I'm excited to dig in.
Have you. Yeah, it should be fun.
It's been a minute since Tim and I have actually shot on Zoom, so I feel like we're going to do a little bit of interrupting of each other today.
Yeah, I mean, the Zoom stuff can be tough with that. We had some great time in person recording these, but you know, to get a guy like Juan and his caliber, you know, sometimes you can't get him in person. We gotta resort to this digital recording, which is still like awesome. So I'm just happy we're back at it and recording more pods.
All right, so I want to start because I know that you picked up and moved from Michigan to Florida. And so I want to talk about that a little bit because I know that there are people out there that are looking to potentially move markets. And so did you start doing content before you moved? Were you just like, all right, let's just freaking go? What did that look like for you?
Terrifying is what it looked like. Even with all the preparation that we planned. Just quick backstory on this. In 2017, I left my corporate position in business development. I was selling real estate I got my license in 2012. Sold my first property I sold was like a $36,000 turnkey foreclosure. Just nuts, right? In Detroit, nobody's making money in real estate. It was a terrible time to get in, so it was perfect for me. I was reading Buffett at the time, and he was like, hey, whenever people are running away, it's a time to get in. And I was so ignorant. I was like, that sounds like a great idea. But I was invited into real estate that way, and just really fell in love with the opportunity to make extra money. So it, had a great career. I was flying around the country. I was in beer. So not a bad job. I was wining and dining, executives from breweries to come back to the state of Michigan and allow us to sell their product. And during this time period, I ran into marketing head on. And it's not something I had no background in marketing, didn't really understand anything about it. In the beer industry, you're told that sales and marketing are the same thing. Like for literally, that's what everybody tells you. So you believe it. And the very first time I was exposed to any real marketing that was attractive to me, I saw Billy Jean doing Facebook advertisements. And if you guys aren't familiar with him, he was one of the early OGs on Facebook and Instagram. And the first video I remember seeing was him doing Willy Wonka. And this was like 2016 or 17 in video on Facebook, right? So it was like very unique. And I was super attracted to that. And I ended up buying into his course. Never bought a course in my life, bought in his course, flew out to San Diego to go to his event. Like it was just crazy. And that's how I got into that. And that is what pulled me into that world and gave me belief that there was something different and a bigger opportunity. And it got me down that rabbit hole. So 2015, 16, I started doing some Facebook ads using video, and that ultimately got me out of that corporate position 2.5 years later, just by investing into that. So it got me to that point. Now the Florida thing, once I left corporate, we were trying to figure out how to make that. And I was doing it strictly through advertising. When we came to Florida, I was trying to pretend I was retired. So, and when I say that, I mean, I was just like off the cuff trying to make it happen. And I just had a newborn. My daughter was 5 months old when we finally made the decision. And I was using agents from my partnership at the brokerage that I was at to show houses. And I was doing all of my listing appointments through Zoom. And I didn't know it at the time. This is 2018 when we moved. I didn't know it at the time how important that was going to become. But people had
you were like before your time. I love it.
No, it's fortuitous. Do not let this come off as Juan knew where the puck was going. Juan was trying to live the Florida dream, not be in Michigan. And I was trying to figure out how to make it happen. And I was just early enough. Let's put it that way. Yeah, so when the pandemic came around, I was able to do some things, but that's kind of how it came. That's the short version of what, obviously there's a lot in between, but I have just always been attracted to marketing. When I was doing business development, I couldn't be playing real estate for 20, 30 hours a week. I was on the road 3 times a week, sometimes twice a month. And how do you balance growing a real estate career and literally flying around the country? So I had to leverage that, and marketing was the way that I did that.
Love that. So I love that jumping point kind of. And what's funny is, I mean, I started my business in a new market. So I heard some kind of parallels I think that people go through when they're starting life in a new market and trying to build a real estate business. What was that first platform, that first kind of marketing channel that you dove into?
It was Facebook. It was 2015, 16, back when you still had access to all types of insights about people and where they live.
The good old days of Facebook advertising.
They had money. You could tell how much money they had. You could plug right into it. Man, the interest targeting was outstanding back in the day, right? Before the Facebook analytics lap came, right? Like it was pretty gnarly. But yeah, that's where I started.
And I love that. I just love the time in Facebook when you could go live and every person you were friends with would see it.
Yeah.
Also that same time.
Yeah. So fun. So you started running Facebook ads, I assume. And then when did you start to fall into that YouTube rhythm and started making content there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So just quick timeline, December 2018, we took possession of our home here in Tampa. Didn't sell any real estate. I was licensed, but didn't sell a single piece of real estate, did not market real estate. Again, I was trying to retire myself. Didn't do any of that. And then when COVID arrived, the governor of Michigan deemed real estate non-essential in the state of Michigan. And I was living in Florida, and for 91 days, I had no money coming to my household. And my wife was like, you have a license, you need to get your behind to work. So I did what I knew to do. I started a Facebook page here in Florida, got my license out of hawk, so to speak, and put that page up. And I did exactly what I needed. I went and did property tours, started marketing them, engagement ads. It just went after it that way. And then roughly a year later, let's see, our channel launched on August 16th, I think, of 2021. So timeline wise, right about a year later, I was like, I got to do something different. And what better way to learn a city? Because I knew if I was going to be selling real estate, I couldn't compete with the other agents. Tim, I'm sure you probably had that experience too. Like, how do I come off as an expert when I don't know anything about my area? Right. Like, and for me, I had already seen guys go into that world of this living in type of branding. Right. And I was like, well, what better way than to document the city? That way I know it as good as anyone else. And that's really how it kind of took off from there. So it was right about August 16th, I think, is when our first video launched.
I love that. And I always talk to agents that are like looking to move to a new city, or they're just getting into real estate and recently moved. And I'm like, it is the perfect opportunity for you to vlog style, talk about all of the things that you're discovering. And so, I don't know, Tim, if you know anyone that's recently moved to a new city or a state, but like, that's something that is just such a perfect content opportunity to say, hey, like, we just moved here and this is all of the stuff that we discovered in that transition. Because not only are you like giving really good information, it's like, it's so relatable because other people are moving from other cities and states. So I love that premise of the channel.
I think, Juan, the thing that you mentioned that I feel like people don't think about is the fact that not only are you creating this content to generate business and everything else, but you're actually doing it to become a better agent as well. We were listening to Matt and Roland in the Bay Area who do these 9-minute listing tours on TikTok. And like, they have so much detail and they know so much about the house. And Matt was saying through doing these videos, he's become a way better agent because it's forced him to learn all of these details that he wouldn't have learned before. And so I think that's one of the most underrated things about doing this type of content in general is not only do you generate business, you actually become a better agent. Like, you get better at your job from doing it as well.
How wild.
Yeah, I got to give props here to Bigger Pockets too. And there's part of that story I left off that summer, right? So that'd been 2021 for COVID. I was like, I got to figure this part out. Like, and I remember listening to Bigger Pockets a year earlier, and there was a guy who was on there, and he was like, if I ever got dropped into a new market, I would go drive Uber. There's no faster way to learn a market. And I remember, like, for whatever reason, right about June, that hit my mind. And I was like, wait a minute, there's a way to do this and get paid. So I literally jumped in an Uber for 3 months that summer during COVID, drove Tampa. And what I would do is I would get to a new place. I would Google it on my phone. I would literally jump out with my GoPro and I would hit the camera right there. And it was like, this is the most guerrilla style thing ever, but I needed to get it done.
So I love that. Again, a lot of parallels. I got my license and we had our first baby, and like my wife was not on board. Not on board, but I didn't really tell her I was getting into real estate. And we were driving to Houston to go see some family. And I just played the Bigger Pockets podcast. All I listened to when I first got my license was the Bigger Pockets podcast. Yeah. And listening to that podcast on that long car ride is kind of what helped flip the switch for her. It's like, oh yeah, we should do real estate. But the other piece of it is I also drove Uber. Like I was mowing lawns, driving Uber, doing whatever I could. And it's such a great way to get to know your area. But Bigger Pockets is also such a great way to learn a ton about investing. And what I found on the residential side, because I didn't know anybody, so I started out on the investing side, is that my clients trust me so much more because I know so much about investing.
Your acumen, absolutely.
And so I think, Bigger Pockets is another underrated resource on education that has helped me out a lot in my business. So you start doing Uber. What's next?
So that was it, right? Jumped in the car, 3 months. And one of the beautiful things about that was, and I'll tie this into Katie's original question here too. One of the beautiful things is I didn't know that I was going to get this education from the person in my car. That's what accelerated it for me more than anything else, Tim. Because when I would tell people, like, they're like, hey, what do you do? Because no one just drives Uber usually. Right. So they're like, what do you do? I'm like, I'm in real estate. They're like, oh man, it must be great for you. I was like, I don't know. I'm just sitting there, minding my own business, but listening. And they'd start telling you about, like, this used to be here and that used to be there, and you should go check this out. And it was just like, these guys were giving me all these insights that I never would have found on Google. Right. And that was the big epiphany for me. And it really helped. And there's this book by Austin Kleon. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, but it's a book called Show Your Work. It is an incredible book. And the reason I bring that up is because, Katie, that was what it was for me, really, more than anything else. I didn't have to treat it as I'm going to be a star, because I'm very uncomfortable with the idea of being the attractive character, if you will. Like, that's not something that I was trying. Again, I was trying to retire in Florida. Why would I want to go be the face of anything? And the book from Austin was talking about, like, the best you're ever going to be is when you show people your journey. And I was like, well, this is perfect, right? Like, I just need to document it. That's all I need to do. And everything else will kind of work itself out. So that was the approach.
The part I like about that story is, we're always saying people want the social media content, the YouTube content, the video content. That's the inside scoop on their neighborhood. They want to hear from that person that just, you got that person in your neighborhood that just knows when every event is. They just know everything about the neighborhood. Like, that's the person that they want to talk to. And when you're moving to a new market, like, how do you become that person? And so you become that person by talking to as many of those people that have the inside scoop as possible. So I love that. Katie, where you go?
You just literally took the words right out of my mouth, Tim. Because I was like, that's what people want. It's like the non-Googleable stuff. It's like they've gone through Google, they've read the articles, they've read the blogs, they've done this, they've done that. And so I was just going to say the same thing you did. But
let's stay on that line. You've built a successful YouTube channel. It's funny because I was going through YouTube channels with some of our agents, and I looked at your thumbnails in your channel, not realizing we were interviewing you today. And your content is very relevant, which is what it needs to be to succeed on a competitive platform like YouTube. So how do you view kind of the topics and, like, the content that you do talk about? Like, how do you figure out what is relevant for your audience?
Oh man, that's such a good one. So you asked the right question and you finished it with the right person in mind. And I'm going to try to take a step back to where people start, because I know oftentimes once you have some experience, you automatically jump to where you are now. Right. And that may not be the most helpful thing, but if I had to do it all over again, the biggest priority I would take is, who do I want to serve, guys? Like, I cannot stress this enough. Like, who is your ideal client? Because the cool thing about YouTube is you can catch any fish that you want in that net. It's really awesome how it's set up. And video, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, they all do the same thing. They'll catch a fish. The real question you need to ask yourself, and the correct question is this the fish that I actually want to catch? And is this the fish that I'm going to eat?
Well, you're talking like somebody who caught some bad fish.
I've had some clients
like a
that
Floridian over here.
Well, I shared you guys my journey. My first home sale was $36,000. $100,000. I split that with an agent who referred that business to me. I worked to death to make $800 after all splits and everything, guys. Like that's not a world that you want to be living in forever, right? So like,
yeah,
when you go and try to start searching for an audience, you get to live life by design. You're no longer forced into hey, I'm a generalist. Hey, I've got a real estate license. Being that kind of convenient is the worst kind of convenient you can be, right? You want to be convenient for your ideal client, not just for a client. So when you drill down on this, that is the most important, is who am I making this video for? And I'm always making a video for one person, not for many people. That is my approach here. So when you gets to topics, I love to think of them in terms of buckets. And maybe you guys have used that term before with your content creation. But YouTube is a great example. The living in brand, there's the easy ones, pros and cons, best neighborhoods, best suburbs. Those are buckets, right? Of like, what is your client searching? And those are a great place to start. But ultimately what you'll find is, who do you want to serve within those buckets? When you start making videos for them, that's when your videos start to break out, your performance breaks out. And most importantly, guys, views are vanity metrics. I don't care what my subs are. I don't care how many views I get. None of that matters. What matters is the amount of appointments that I sit, right? Because that is the only thing I can control, is the work that I do every week. And the most important metric to me in my business is the appointment set. The conversion is a sales mechanism. That's not a marketing mechanism, right? So hopefully that helps give some clarification there.
So let's get into the weeds a little bit on the appointments, right?
Okay.
As far as calls to action, there's many different people that say many different things. I'd love to hear what camp you fall into. Do you have a call to action? Mm-hmm. Do you just have a link? Do you have your email or phone number pop up on the screen? Like, what do you do to get people to watch your video and then say, I do want to live in Tampa Bay area, and Juan and his team are going to help me? So
good. So let me just start by saying this. No matter what someone says is the absolute truth, you will always find the exact opposite to prove you wrong. So what I'm about to say is how I approach this, rather than how everyone should. Right? Because I've seen people who don't do call to actions have success, and that's wonderful as well. But I have been trained in the direct response marketing world, which says that you never put out something without asking for something in return, period. Now, here's what I'll say. Media and marketing and behavior is shifting. So there is some validity on the other side of it. And what I would say is, do what feels right for you. But I don't need 1 million view videos that don't get people to show up in appointments. That's not a metric that I care about, or that my team cares about. They care about how many appointments have you got scheduled for us this week, Juan? So for me, yes, we do a call to action. I've had a journey with that, just like anybody else would. Way too heavy when I started, lightened it up, got too light because I was like, well, that they don't like it that much. Let's back it off. And then it wasn't enough. And it's been this happy medium. So I do both a direct call out. Hey, if you're looking to move, we can help you. And I've made that a more compressed version than the minute version I used to use when I started. It was terrible. So don't go back to those earlier videos. They're terrible, y'all. That has gotten much, much closer to a 1 or 2 sentence just to get through it. And there are a few call outs during our videos where, we put our number up there, and that's feedback. Where that comes from is when somebody says, hey, I couldn't find your number anywhere. And I already know, when somebody says that, I already know what age they are, right? And it's funny how the video works, right? Y'all, you probably experienced with this too, right? If I get a text message, I know they're probably 35 or younger on average. If I get a DM, I know that we're talking about Gen Z or a millennial, most likely. And if the phone rings, I already know who's on the end of that.
That's
right?
Funny, yeah.
It's crazy how it works, man. But so, it's been a blessing. Quick,
so you've boiled it down to a second or a sentence or two. Yeah. Love it. What is the sentence or two?
So there's two, it depends on what type of video, what bucket I'm in, but ultimately it's like this. And I'll just give you the rundown. A little over 5 years ago, and I tell a story through this as well. This is where the big shift has changed, right? A little over 5 years ago, my wife, Kate, and I packed up our family of 5, sold everything we owned, moved 1,200 miles south of the Tampa Bay area, and have been loving it ever since, right? And I'm also a licensed real estate agent. So if you're considering making a move to the Tampa Bay area, do not hesitate to reach out to me and my team. All of my contact information is down below. So that was a little bit of a change from the original, but telling that story gives, what it does is, that's the psychological carrot that I dropped ahead of time. Hey, I'm just like you.
Yeah.
I love that.
Right.
And then where in your video do you usually drop that?
Upfront, usually within. So our structure, our frame of a video, which I have a framework for it. I don't ever just get loosey goosey. So our hook, which is our most important thing that we focus on, that hook is I script every single hook on my videos now. I never used to do that, but for the last 100, I script every one of them. That gets followed up by the introduction, which is that component of it. I'll tie that hook into that introduction in a way, shape, or form, and then I roll right into the meat of the video.
Love it. What do you,
I just pause for 1 second, Tim. Tim, I love how like you're like, I didn't used to, but for the last 100 videos. Like it's not like, oh, so recently but like the amount of content that you put out is awesome. So just kudos to you on that. Tim, what was your question?
One, I wanted to clarify too. I forgot what I wanted to clarify because Katie interrupts me.
Sorry guys, I'm a teacher. I can't help it.
I did a CTA thought I had too was I like when people plant seeds of a CTA, so it's not as direct, but when somebody in their video says, on one of our buyer consultation calls we had, somebody said such and such, and that little bell goes off in their head. They're like, oh,
all the time.
Juan does buyer consultation calls. And so I love just planting those seeds to say, oh, Juan works like my client bought a house here, or like, I was doing and just planting those seeds of, oh, Juan has clients. Juan does buyer consultations. Like, I want to be a client. I want to have a buyer consultation. And those, I love those. The other piece was you said you script your hooks. So does that mean you really dial in the hooks? You really dial in the first, 20 seconds of what you say in that video, but the rest of it, you're somewhat off the cuff, or is it bullet pointed, or how do you run that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yes, the framework of the video, like we discussed. So ultimately it's hook, right? It's introduction. If you don't want that, that's totally fine. Again, there are people who can prove the other side of that, right? And have done that well. But for us, it's hook, it's intro. Then I do a transitional statement of making the move from that that introduction to the body of where we're going into. From there, it's bulleted. Strictly only. I've tried the read from the line by line and look at the camera and look back. And it's just so much extra work. For me, I'm in the market. And I think I'll say this about this point, because this is one of the things I've recognized as a sticking point for most creators. They're like, hey, I want to script all this. If you show up on camera and you don't sound or feel like you, and what I mean by that is if that tone, the delivery, the cadence doesn't sound exactly like it would if you were having a conversation like we're having now, I would caution you against doing that publicly. Because when you actually get an appointment and someone shows up in front of you and those two things are not congruent, you're going to lose that opportunity.
Katie, so I think that's probably a thing that we don't talk about enough is tone. I think about Malcolm Lawson, and Dan Parker's another one. Like, they just pull you in with the way they talk. And I mean, you could take two people and have them make the same video, say the same thing, have the same script, and you will get drastic differences in performance based on the tone and how they pull people in when they talk, as opposed to somebody that's reading something off. So I love that. I think that's a great point.
Well, I mean, I think that, like, I always tell people, if they're scripting it, right? Like, and you said it and it didn't work for you, like, you need to read a couple sentences at a time. It shouldn't just be like, and so this is the thing that we talk about in Tampa Bay. And, it has to be like, okay, let me read this now, say it to the camera. And it's harder to edit. It's harder to piecemeal. Like, talking in full thoughts or bullet points is a lot easier and generally more natural as you get more comfortable with video.
Bullet points are the best way. No, you go ahead.
Well, one thing I will say though is I have written out entire videos, and the practice of writing them out has helped me say it better. So I'll write it out, I'll read it again, I'll write it out, I'll read it, and then I'll kind of grab the bullet points from it and speak it into the camera. And just because I've gone through the exercise of writing the whole thing, maybe I'm a little bit more familiar. But I agree. Like, you got to be able to have the conversation with the camera, like you have a conversation with a person, and you would never talk to your clients reading off of a script.
Hopefully not.
No. And I was headed right there, Tim. That's exactly where I was going with that. If you guys were to record the BTS of me delivering a video, right, you'll see a full script. I have a copywriter now. I don't do all the nuanced nonsense of getting in the weeds on that. What I'm doing is, like, she brings the ideas to me now. right? Based upon my habits, here's our buckets that we're looking for. Here's the sources to find that information. Go build this. And what she does is she brings back an entire month worth of, hey, I think we should talk about this based upon research and based upon what's timely. And I'll look at it and be like, yes. Nope, we need to make a pivot here. This is changing. We got to do stuff on the fly, right? And I'm in the market. I want to say this. Every morning I wake up and I read between 20 and 30 different publications. I know what's happening, not only in my market, but the market, right? So I can speak to that at any point, but she delivers that. And what she'll do is she'll deliver me a product, and that first 30 seconds, I tear that thing to shreds. Sometimes it's excellent, but for the most part, I tear it apart. And then I'll practice my cadence and delivery on it. No, I don't like how I positioned it there. And for me, this is something I had to do because I'm not like a level 13 human being, which means like I'm not. And Katie, you and I have had if I didn't have to be on camera, I wouldn't. I can't wait till we figure out how to not actually be on camera and people think it's me. I just can't wait for that, right? But the reason being is because when I feel like I'm excited, I know it's actually like a 6. And I know that because when I get a videographer, at the rare times that I have, they're like, so that was great, but if we could just turn it up, a little bit more. And then like, it nope, feels like, dude, and it feels like I'm at like 15 and like, yeah. Oh, so can we get more energy? I'm like, oh my God. And you see it on film and I am boring by nature. I know this. So that part helps me work through that emphasis to get into it, because what that allows me to do is capture the audience and give them enough time to digest who I am to then start the delivery. And now I'm talking to my people specifically. So I just wanted to emphasize that because Tim is so spot on. It's the work you do in that 15 to 20 minutes prior to that camera going live that will determine what the outcome of that video is going to be.
Out of curiosity, what type of people are contacting you as far as personality type? Like when you look at like the disc profile.
You already know. So first and foremost, let's start with demo, then we'll get into psycho, right? So like graphics is what we're referring to here. So demographic, I'm 47 years old in November. That demographic line is perfect. I've got, the 40 to 45-year-olds, dead nuts in the middle, and then, bookending on both sides. Very few Gen Z watch my channel, and very few like elder boomers do. Okay, so we very little geographic influence on those ends, because
being a Florida agent, you really got to have the names of those demographics.
You got to know them out. You got to know. Yeah, and if this is offensive in any way, I love y'all. This is just who I am, right? Filter
boomers is the nicest way I've ever heard someone say old people. Hey, I think you nailed it.
Much wisdom beyond me is the way we put it, right? There's a verse in the Bible where it says she was well into her years, and I think that's such a diplomatic way to handle it.
Oh my God, yeah. No, you're very good.
I need to read the Bible more often. Be more diplomatic. Yeah. Take away from the
so that is definitely there. But the psychographic stuff, like, absolutely. That's where you really get into who am I in front of, and the disc profile. I definitely attract the high C. Yeah. The critical thinker, drivers too, but that's fine. That's my favorite land to live in. We can do that all day, right?
Well, the reason why I ask is because, when I think about like Instagram versus YouTube, right? Like Instagram at this point in time is pretty much all short form content, right? And so, for 30 seconds, I can freaking turn it on, right? But for a 5-minute video, like you and I have very similar personalities, right? Yeah. And so, just as you were saying all that, it made me laugh because some of the people that contact us off YouTube, I'm just like, oh my goodness, like, yeah, okay, you can send me over the freaking spreadsheet, like, let's go, whatever. I like it, but just like, can we make a decision? So I was just laughing internally as you were kind of going through all that.
That's funny.
I think it brings up a good point because, what you said about focusing on your audience and really make the content for the type of client. We say that all the time. We say it all the time because it's true. But I do think a lot of agents have like a question mark when you say that, because you're like, well, I want people who want to buy a house. You know what I mean? Like, is it? But if you if you're going to make something that's highly data driven and you really get into the weeds about an area, like you're going to attract someone who's highly data driven. If you're out there making rainbow and butterfly Florida content and it's just like stuff that's pretty and like emotional stuff, then like you're probably going to attract that audience. And so I just think like what you just said about the demographic you're attracting in Katie's spreadsheets, it's just a good example. Like that's, I think, what you meant when you started out by saying make the content for the person that you want to do business with.
Yeah, our avatars are named. Our ideal clients are named. I know how much. I know where they work. I know how much money they make. I know what their ideal lifestyle looks like. Because at the end of the day, guys, I don't sell houses. That's not what I sell. I sell a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right. We can find them a box and a roof anywhere in the country. That's crazy talk. That's not a distinguishable difference.
I heard Christina Smallhorn give a talk at Vid Summit a couple years ago, and that was her whole talk, and I loved it. She was like, "You guys try to make videos for everybody." She's like, "I make videos for Carl," which I don't think it's Carl. I think we're gonna find out it's a different name, but she has a name for her
super
person.
Basic, like that older white man's name. Yeah,
it's just like this guy who's maybe an elder boomer who's like worried about housing prices, who's looking for affordable options. Like she just knows exactly the mindset of that person that she's making videos for.
100%.
And what we love about YouTube, which you mentioned early on, is when we try to make videos for everybody, we make videos for nobody. Mm-hmm. And when we try to make videos for one person, these amazing algorithms go and find thousands of other people just like that one person you're making the video for.
Yep. There was a quote. This was my first Vid Summit. I went last week or 2 weeks ago, where it was, and there was a quote from Todd Bupre, who is part of YouTube's growth analytics side, right? The guys who know all about the algorithm, right? And there are two things that I took away from that I think are super powerful. Number one, they said, anytime you want to use the word algorithm, replace that with the word people. And I was like, yep, and it totally makes sense, right? But the other thing that he said that I thought was really, it was a huge moment for me, like the light bulb went off. He said that YouTube does not push videos. YouTube pulls videos. They pull them for the viewer. And it sounds close, but that's a different mindset.
Katie and I were literally just texting that quote to ourselves.
We both text each other at the same time. Replace algorithm with people. All right, I wanted.
We got to pull.
No, that's because I mean, how freaking often do you say like we're doing it for the algorithm? We're doing it for the algorithm
all the time.
Okay, so I want to shift gears a little bit.
I'm not shifting gears. I'm staying in this gear. I love Katie's face right now.
Just finish your fucking thought.
Well, because I do think people go down these roads. I talk to our agents all the time who are trying to do more YouTube stuff. And they're like, well, SEO told me that people are searching for this, and TubeBuddy said this. And like, you're trying to work the algorithm when, like you said, it's people. And so whenever we get all of this nonsense kind of data thrown at us, I usually hit the pause button and I'm like, look, you're a person scrolling through YouTube. Like, what is going to stand out to them? What are the topics that are going to stand out to them? What's the thumbnail that's going to stand out to them? What's the content that's going to stand out to them? Not what TubeBuddy is telling you to make a video about, not what search results are telling you to make a video about. Like, what do you think people want, not what you think the algorithm wants?
Can I double down on that? Because
of course, we don't need to change gears.
I love line of thinking.
Yeah.
No, I love line of thinking. So the question I would ask, the answer to that is right. Katie jumped on the screen. I love that. So I love that question, right? That's correct. People are searching that. But my question is, what people? Are they your people? Because if they're not your people, that's not relevant data to you. And it's most certainly not relevant to them. We're asking the wrong questions. What does my person, what are they typing, right? So like that is where people make the money. They don't make the money at the bottom of the funnel where everybody's ready to go. Professional marketers focus on the top end, not the bottom. That's where everybody's fighting for table scraps, right? You're waiting for the scraps from Longshank's table, and I'm just not interested in that, right? Like
Longshank's table.
Dude, I'm here to like just get those relationships up front. That is the correct question, right? Like I'll give you an example. Our ideal client is a move up buyer who gets to, not has to, they get to, right? And our ideal seller is a move for amenities and lifestyle. That's who it is. Outside, I don't focus on I don't talk about any of that stuff. None of that stuff matters. Probate, I have been in living rooms with people who have lost families and they're going through divorces. I hate those conversations. I have no interest. It doesn't work for me. I'm not the most delicate flower on the planet. I love people, but I don't know how to sympathize in that moment. I can empathize with them, but I'm like, dude, I don't want to cry with you. This is weird. right?
you and Katie are like same wavelength. And Katie,
Yeah.
one last point before we change gears. We're hands on the shifter. We're ready to change.
Yeah.
I love what you said about people. Like, I love what you said about people. And your people, like, are they your people? The other part on the search thing that I think people should think about, it's like, okay, this is what people are searching for. And I think what people naturally do is they try to make their title something similar to that, to SEO their way up that search result. When in actuality, you should look at, okay, people are searching this, and then you go into YouTube and you search that and you see what pops up and you say, okay, what is something more relevant, evokes more curiosity from somebody and would get more clicks. And a lot of times it is not what the person is searching. You know what I mean? Like, you can't just try to keyword stuff your way into getting up the search results. You got to click-through rate your way get up the search results. And you do that by looking at what people are searching and then say, man, okay, if that person is searching moving to Tampa, I want to move to Tampa, or what it's like to move to Tampa. Okay, that's what people are searching. What would be that thumbnail and that title that would just be irresistible for my type of person to click on? Not just like naming your video the same as the search, what people are searching.
It's great advice.
All right, Katie, let's go. Where do you want to go, Katie? Where are we driving this podcast?
I have one thought. And like, I love interviewing our YouTube friends, but I hate interviewing our YouTube friends because right now, like, my brain is just like spinning in a way that I'm like, I just need to go make a new YouTube channel, like, and just crush this. Like, and like Tim and I talk about this all the time. I'm like, anytime we interview someone that's like doing something well, I'm just like, I want to freaking do it, So thank you for that, Juan. I appreciate you. Okay, I want to shift gears and talk a little bit about the live stream. Right. Yeah. And so I know it's been something that you've been doing for a while on YouTube. You pop up on my Instagram at least once a week, doing it on Instagram as well. And so I want to talk a little bit kind of around the logistics of that. Like, are you using StreamYard? Are you going live and then have your phone up? Like, what does that look like?
So the tech stack part of it, we use StreamYard, have since the beginning of it. OBS is another tool. I'm technically sound, but I'm just like spreadsheets. I love to look at them. I don't want to build them. So I never went with the OBS. Right. Yeah. Like, people are like, well, you can build. I was like, no, we're all set with that. All I want to do is click go. Right. Yeah. So I love StreamYard as a tool. It allows you to bring other creators into the space if you want to. I've interviewed mortgage people and inspectors on our live streams before and had those things too. I have our team on that live stream now. It used to be me solo, but I use that. And we do one night a week. We do it at the same time. And I'd like to hit that point because I think that this is probably more valuable than that tech thing that you can find. Another insight that came from Vid Summit recently is YouTube on television. This is such an important thing to know. On television, the device, the TV, because they can track that now, right? As long as they don't have those old tube ones. Yeah. The device itself, it has more watch hours than any other streaming platform, including Netflix. I want to say that out loud again. There are more people watching YouTube on television than any other platform. And when they said that, I was like, wow, that's a really big number. And they're like, well, they generate more revenue too. That all makes sense to me. But I know from my analytics, the longest viewed videos I have on a device, the same video goes out, the television performs about 1.5 minutes better on my average video. So my average view duration on my channel is just shy of 8 minutes, or like 10:36 on television. Why is that important? Well, it's because people get really comfy and cozy and they don't float around as much here, swipe to the next thing, right? So that is why I love that. Now, the other thing that they said is, I don't know if you guys have noticed for you as well, long form videos on YouTube, creators that you guys have probably been comfortable watching for years that were making 10 or 20 minute videos are now starting to go 40, 50, an hour long. And the reason being is because that demographic that is watching YouTube for that time period, they're familiar with television broadcast. They grew up in a timeline where they used to tune in to a specific thing. They grew up watching Golden Girls, if you're old like me, or Rugrats, if you're younger like you guys, or whatever it was. But like, you showed up at a certain day at a certain time to watch that thing because your people were there. And when you bring in the tech, I think we need to talk about why do we choose to use a platform like this? And the broadcast of that going out to Instagram and TikTok and LinkedIn and all those other places, the distribution is the easy part because of the tech, right?
Yeah.
Using something like StreamYard over just the YouTube stream itself gives you the ability to go out in multiple distribution channels, but none of those other platforms ever they don't keep anybody. They're not designed to do that, and that's okay. But what that allows me to do is turn something that was designed to build a relationship and deliver actual value to somebody as that reach mechanism that we like to use on socials, which is hey, I'm still over here. I'm doing my thing professionally. If you need me, I'm here. That's all that's doing over there, right? They're not going back and watching that long. It's not happening. Right.
I was going to say it juices the algorithm. You can't really say it juices the people, but it keeps you top of mind.
It reminds my person.
Yeah.
I think, we started watching a lot of YouTube on TV about 7 or 8 years ago. Cause I've just never had cable. It's funny. You're 1,000% right. My only pushback is on the age thing, referencing that, like, because we grew up on regular television, we're watching. I think it's all age demographics. I mean, my 9-year-old,
they're all there
and watches on TV, right? I think it's just in general, people are streaming more. Yeah, love it. They're
watching.
Look, people are streaming more. They go on if they have a smart TV or an Apple TV, like they go through their little options, and more. Like I just realized I keep clicking on YouTube over Netflix, over Hulu, over these other ones. And I can tell like that trend is happening everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about it too, generally speaking, depending on who you're following or watching on YouTube, it's more relevant information than Netflix. Like Netflix comes out with new TV shows, but like who's really watching kind of the sitcom shows anymore? So it's like hearing stories, or if I'm looking to move to Tampa, watching your hour-long video would be something that would be way more relevant to me, right?
The other thing that's fun is people aren't, Ken Pozek did this poll on like where do you get your news from?
Yeah.
And people are watching YouTube more, but they're not watching it's not like they're going on YouTube and watching traditional stuff. But they are still getting their news from these different platforms. And like your opportunity to be on YouTube and be a local informer in a local place where people get their information from is such a massive opportunity that YouTube's been around for years, but the opportunity of YouTube still feels fresh to me in a lot of ways.
They can get the personal insight without the political malaise.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Or they can get the political malaise if they want it, because they can find a channel.
Depending on where you're going.
Absolutely. But for me, I don't deliver it that way, to your point, right? And Katie, you're talking because it's built for someone, not built for everyone. That's what's happening there, right?
People trust it more than they trust, traditional news. So huge opportunity. Katie, what you got? Change gears. Go wherever you want, Katie.
That was the gear that I changed to, and I wanted to touch on because it's something that not many people are doing. It's something that adds an additional layer of content that you don't have to script out and edit. It's like, here are our topics for the day or for the week. Let's kind of just shoot the shit about what's happening. And it's
sorry. I'm an awful co-host. Look, I've got an example. Question on analytics, because it sounds like you're somebody that dives into the data. Maybe. Have you seen YouTube favor some of your content and show it more on TV, or is it just kind of a standard thing that's in there? Like if you go live, do you see the percentage of viewers on TV go up? Like what's that look like?
Oh, that's another. I'm so glad you asked that question, because
Katie hates when guests compliment me or say I asked a good question. I'll keep it coming.
Terrible question. So it was funny during that conversation with Tim and with Tabu Prey and Mr. Ritchie, when they were talking about this, it confirmed my belief, and I didn't have insight on it, but they talked about this, and meaning that content should be actually built. It should be built for the end device in mind. And that was a very unique. Now, they didn't say stop doing everything and only focus on television or only focus on mobile or only focus on tablet. They didn't say that, right? Because in analytics, you guys can see that. If you don't know that, once your YouTube channel gets to a certain amount of, I don't remember what the subscriber count number was when they unlocked that little magical unicorn for me. But at some point, I got to see what device people were watching on. And what they confirmed was, again, is YouTube is more likely to pull a video. Remember, it's not pushing, but it's more likely to pull a video that viewer would most likely be interested in based upon what device they're on. So when you're on mobile, if you're not somebody who watches an hour-long episode on mobile, it most likely will not serve that up to you when you're sitting in your stoplight on your phone in the car. That goes directly to Tim's question, right? But when you're home in front of the television, you're now more likely to see that hour-long or 30-minute long video on that device or your computer, if that's where you watch it. The algorithm, remember, this is people, but it's really focused on what you want as a user.
I love this because I get really excited about being a nerd. And I think you said it. Now I realize my feed is different on my phone than my feed that I see on my desktop is different from my feed that we see on the TV, because we all sit down as a family a lot of times and we're watching YouTube, but it's all logged into the same account, right? Like I'm the same viewer, yet the stuff I see on the TV is different than the stuff I see on my computer and the stuff I see on my phone. And it goes back to this idea that we had, which Brad McCallum, yay, Brad, he's great. He kind of did some math on, how much business he generates on TikTok compared to how much business he generates on YouTube and the different platforms. And we kind of came down to the math that like 100 views on YouTube is worth like 100,000 views
so much more money
on TikTok. And I think this even goes a level deeper. I would take 100 views on somebody's TV over 1,000 views on somebody's phone.
It's not even close.
Same type of concept. Yeah.
To my business, it's not even close. For a year, I invested in shorts. We were doing 2 to 3 shorts every single day. When I mean shorts is YouTube shorts, vertical video, right?
Yeah.
Instagram, TikTok, I did all that. Went nuts doing that. We put hardly any money to the bottom line. And I can run out a YouTube video that has 300-400 views from 2 years ago, and I can show you the 3 closings that came from that video. So that's when I was like, at some point, I've got to make a decision about where we're going to put our focus and our interest. And that's why we went so deep on YouTube. And the live streams were just another way for me to get content. And Katie, this is a good question, like focusing on this. And I got a teacher's heart. I went to school to be a teacher, didn't finish that career because I was never going to make any money there. Right. So I decided to walk away from that. But ultimately, I love to help people win. The thing I love about real estate is like, I don't care. Guys, you could come into my market. I could teach you everything I know. You're going to attract a different client. They were built for you, not for me. Right. Are there going to be some overlaps? Sure. But is there enough business on the table for us to? Absolutely. So don't worry about that. And the reason being is because we're building relationships online. I'm not making content. I'm building relationships. Right. And once you understand that mindset of like, I'm making this video for a specific human being, my entire goal here is to build a relationship with this human being. And then once they're ready, they will contact me. Right. I have not done prospecting based business in 5 years. Right. We just started doing some paid advertisement again. YouTube has changed my life in ways I can't. We have had 285 Zoom calls scheduled year to date.
That's amazing.
That they scheduled, not that I scheduled, that they scheduled. Right. Awesome. And those live streams will typically result in 2 to 3 either emails, text messages, or actual appointments after every one of those live streams. It's an hour of my time. It's an hour of my team's time, but we're building relationships. If you go back and look at there, you're starting to see a community show up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The same people, right? It's amazing.
Love that. Juan, I saw Katie cringe when you mentioned shorts and everything, because she knows I would love to dive down that rabbit hole, but we've had like a great little call here. And honestly, I think your message there was a kind of a great one to to top off this wonderful YouTube cake that we've baked over the last 50 minutes. So Juan, any last thought you want to leave people with? Where can people reach you? All that fun stuff.
Oh man, that's great. Oh man, you put me on the hook for that. So
What's
here
your CTA, man?
yeah, man. Yeah. And again, I didn't prepare, but here's the thing I'll say. Video has the ability to do something that no other platform can. I love prospecting based businesses. I think that they're so incredible. Those guys have a skill set that I can't comprehend. My first partner, 100 listings in his first year as a real estate agent, banging the phones. That guy is a gangster. That's a whole nother conversation. But for me, I get the ick. I don't like any part of that. I don't want any part of that. My whole goal in life is to be short-term ambitious so I can be long-term lazy. And there is nothing that like video to do that for you. To be able to sit here and say, we've built an entire business in 2 states, right? All through video, and clients schedule their own appointments. To me, I never would have dreamed of having a business like that when I started. I've never seen anybody do anything like that. And to be able to design a business on purpose that has gotten us to this point where the geography doesn't really limit me anymore. And, we're able to have a team. We've got 4 agents across 2 states. I've got a production team of 9 people that we feed now. Like, it's such a blessing to be able to have that kind of impact on other people's lives. And it all started when somebody told me that you can't do that. Like, how's that possible? It's not going to happen. But video will outlive you. When you think that like we're going to do somewhere between 20 and 30,000 watch hours in a single month, you can't
out cold call that.
You can't. Any day of the week, guys. I can take every day of the week off, and we're still out there working in front of our ideal client. So if I can give you any just inspiration at all, it's like, if you believe this is something that interests you, find somebody who inspires you in this industry, who is willing to teach you that thing, and go be a bulldog. Don't let go of their leg. Ask them what you can do to help, and then get involved in that and just start creating content, man. No matter what. No, but you're going to suck at first at anything you do, guys. It's a fact. Then you're going to suck a little bit less. Then it'll be okay. Then eventually it'll be good. And at some point it'll change your life. You'll open up your eyes and you'll be like, I cannot believe this is where we are. And I'm just so grateful that video has been able to change my life like that. And listen, it's not exclusive to anyone sitting in front of you right now, right? No one has to ask permission to open up a camera that you carry around every single day and just talk to people. And that's what we do.
Love it. Love it. Great stuff, Juan. Katie, I appreciate you being my mentor and letting me bother you all the time. And Juan, just like great message today, man. Honestly, I think I needed it because we're in the process of hiring full-time videographer. And so kind of got me fired up a little bit. Sounds like you got Katie fired up, and hopefully our audience got some value from it. So we appreciate you coming on, man.
You're welcome, guys. Have a good day.
We'll see you.